Today I want to show you the number one skill that AI can't replace. Not now, maybe not ever. This skill shows up in just about every field. Tech, creative, medicine, leadership, even manual labor. And I'm going to show you how to actually practice it every single day. Okay, maybe not every day, let's just say most days. So that we can stay one step ahead of AI, even if it keeps getting smarter. By the way, my name is JT. I've been a systems consultant for 20 years. Helping people in an organization thrive in a changing world is my lifelong passion. So what's this special skill that I'm talking about? It's called taste. And by taste, I don't just mean fashion sense or food preferences. I mean intuitive judgment. The ability to sense what matters now and what's going to matter next. This is surprisingly hard for AI. But why is that? Let me give you a few examples first. A good writer can kind of sense what book to write next. That balances novelty with familiarity and personal vision with commercial viability. This is like a creative intuition that helps them foresee the next literary trend before it even happens. Similarly, a good entrepreneur can sense what product to build next. That balances cost with quality, function with form. This market intuition helps them stay ahead of their competitors. Managers need a similar taste too. It's called relational intuition. The good ones know when to check in with their employees and when to step back and let them lead. And a good landscaper has the physical intuition to balance efficiency with safety and short-term beauty with long-term plant health. Now, I've only scratched the surface here. In reality, each of these jobs has a lot more competing trade-offs to balance. And to make things more complicated, those trade-offs don't stay the same. What matters today might not matter tomorrow. This makes it a lot more expensive and time-consuming to train AI. Humans, on the other hand, can do it much faster. So what makes us different? Why are we so much better at intuitive judgment? To answer that, I'm going to show you how humans actually practice taste, and I'll do it with the help of some unlikely allies. Yes, jazz. You see, jazz musicians have impeccable taste. They can step on stage, improvise in the moment, and somehow make it sound cool and effortless at the same time. Such intuition is the result of their rigorous practice. I know this because I used to be in a jazz band back in college, and I was pretty bad because, well, I didn't practice much. Anyway, this jazz practice has 4 steps, and as I go through each step, you'll see how easily they can be applied to any creative field, like art, writing, film, theater, or even branding. Step 1. Explore the landscape. If you're a beginner in jazz, the first thing you do is listen a lot. Swing, bebop, fusion, as many styles as possible. And while you're at it, learn the theory and history behind each style too. Psychologists call this stimulus variability. When you expose your senses to a large variety of inputs, your brain naturally gets better at noticing subtle differences. So the more diversity you explore, the finer your intuitions become. Step 2. Imitate the experts. Every jazz teacher will tell you to copy the greats. Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk, whoever resonates with you. Then, pick one of their solos, transcribe it note for note. Practice it until you can play along almost exactly. Scientists call this cognitive apprenticeship, learning by modeling experts in real life, because there are insights and principles that can't be learned in books or recordings. You have to discover them yourself as you try to learn the techniques of the experts. Now, here's where the human-AI difference starts to show. AI can do step 1 pretty well. It can scan more music than any human ever could. And it can do some of step 2, but mostly imitating actions with simple, fixed goals. Running and jumping without falling? Sure. But performing a jazz solo? That's a lot more complicated. Because what does it mean for a solo to feel edgy, emotional, or compelling? And where do you find the training data that labels which notes makes a solo edgy? You can't. Not without hiring a ton of jazz musicians to label every note of every record. That's why AI ends up learning skills only at surface level. They don't have the real-life data that allows them to imitate the experts at a deep level like we do. But that's not the only problem. There's also something inside of humans that AI just doesn't have. And to understand that, we need to look at the next steps. Step 3. Experiment with constraints. Once you've mastered the solo, you can start playing with it. Take a short passage, maybe even a single lick, and create new music using just that part. Bend it, stretch it, rearrange it. See how wild you can make it. Then take those small experiments and make a whole song out of it, maybe even a whole album. The point is to keep pushing your limits. Educators call this productive failure. By experimenting with constraints and even failing in some ways, you deepen your insights even more. And ironically, such constraints also increase your originality, which helps you develop your own unique style over time. Step 4. Measure and compare. If you can, record your experiments so that you can hear it from a fresh perspective. Then, compare them to each other and to the expert. But don't just simply declare one is better as a whole. Pay attention to the little details, the timing, phrasing, emotion, and ask yourself why certain details resonate more. Then, take those insights back into your next round of experiments. This is called analogical encoding. By measuring your progress and comparing the differences, you see what works and what doesn't immediately. This further refines your intuition and speeds up your progress. This feedback loop is what transforms random experiments into compelling innovations. Again, AI can do some of Step 3 and Step 4, but still just at a surface level. It can experiment and learn from its own feedback pretty well if the goals are clear and simple, like racking up points in a video game or writing code that runs correctly. But when the goals aren't clear, it quickly hits a wall. On the other hand, humans can learn in complex environments, even when there is no clear goals, because we have something AI doesn't have. Our emotions and motivations act like meta goals. You can think of them as our intrinsic tastes that guide us through life and help us develop acquired tastes as we encounter new experiences. For example, we're born with the intuition to balance novelty and familiarity because our survival depended on it. Sometimes we have to stick with what already works, but other times we have to adapt. And as our environments and cultures change, so does our sense of what counts as novel or familiar. So for AI to truly learn taste, it will need to have its own intrinsic motivations. And each motivation will have to contain many layers of emotions, constantly shaping each other and learning from a changing world. But here's the problem. With each added layer, the complexity grows wildly. In math, this kind of growth is called combinatorial explosion. If you think exponential growth is a lot, combinatorial growth is far beyond that. This is why such AI will be prohibitively expensive to build and train, which means your ability to practice taste will always be your edge over AI. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, fine, maybe we have a creative edge, but can this practice really apply to other fields? Definitely. Let me show you how to apply it to market, relational, and physical intuition. And then I will add a bonus intuition that will cover even more jobs. It might even blow your mind a little bit, because it shows that taste is about something much bigger than just humans. Okay, first, we will look at market intuition, because it's an easy leap from creative intuition. As an entrepreneur, you start by reading the basics, like general business practices and marketing principles. But more importantly, you need to study the specifics in your industry, the consumer trends, supply chain logics, and regulatory barriers. And don't be shy to branch out to other industries, because that helps you understand the nuance between different practices. For imitation, you can dig into case studies, learn how a particular company made key decisions, what worked, what didn't, and what market conditions made it all possible. And here's something cool. When it comes to experimenting, the tech startup world has already built a perfect process, the minimum viable product. When you have a new idea for a product, you should build a prototype with just enough useful features. This way, you can launch it and get feedback from real users as soon as possible. This allows you to improve the product incrementally while minimizing the cost of potential failures. Over time, this process refines your intuition for what products your customers will want before they even know it. Such intuition isn't just valuable for entrepreneurs, it's also crucial for marketers, investors, and product managers. But what about relational intuition? That one feels less tangible than songs and products. How do you practice that? Well, first, there are tons of books on communication, group dynamics, and leadership. But the real training ground is your day-to-day interactions with people, especially across diverse cultures and identities. This will help you master different communication styles and just get more perspectives that you might not get from your own social circles. And when it comes to imitation, yes, you can learn from naturally charming people, but don't just stop there. Pay attention to those who may not seem charismatic at first, but who excels at building authentic connections, or at resolving conflicts with proficiency and grace. For experimentation, you can try out new words, tones, and body language. Practice it on your own first, maybe even record it. Then practice it with a trusted friend so that they can give you honest feedback. Eventually, you can do it with strangers and notice how they respond to you. And once you're comfortable with one-on-one, push yourself further, organize small gatherings, and facilitate difficult conversations. Over time, this will feel like second nature. You will know when to listen, when to lead, how to mediate, how to inspire. This intuition is invaluable for managers, teachers, therapists, community organizers, or even just being a good friend. Now, let's talk about physical intuition. This one also feels intangible at first, but the same practice applies. You can start by learning the theories and ergonomics of that particular job. Whether it's sports, dance, cooking, construction, or any kinds of hands-on jobs. YouTube can get you going, but for deeper insights, you'll probably need a real-life expert, a coach, or an experienced maker. You can experiment by adjusting your techniques. Something that works effortlessly for one person may not work for you. Pay attention to short-term and long-term results. You also want to focus on aspects of your jobs that don't have clear-cut rules, because those are harder for AI to perfect. For a landscaper, that may mean an intuitive eye for pruning. For a chef, that might mean knowing what flavors are missing in a new recipe. Alright, now for the bonus intuition, the taste that ties all other tastes together. I call this analytical and strategic intuition, the ability to sense patterns and leverage points in large, complex systems. This is crucial for so many jobs. Doctors navigate a complex landscape of pathogens and symptoms to make a diagnosis. Software engineers navigate code and users to debug errors. And culture is another complex system that activists and politicians have to understand. Even scientists have to have some intuitive grasp of a knowledge landscape. What all these systems have in common is that they contain many small elements that interact and change. You have to study the elements, but it's more important to understand how change emerges from the interactions. For example, in medicine, type 2 diabetes doesn't have a single cause. It develops over time from a mix of things, like genes, childhood history, exercise, diet, and even your gut bacteria. All of these factors interact and change how your body handles sugar and insulin. So the experts with the best intuition are not the ones that understand the system as is. They're the ones who can spot new leverage points that can change the system entirely. Like a software engineer who invents a new coding pattern that transforms the way software is built. Or an activist who sparks a culture shift that reshapes the whole economy. Now, the best way to experiment is to draft new analysis. See if you can find some leverage points that others overlooked, and make some bold predictions about future trends or unintended consequences. Many of those analyses will be totally wrong, but that's okay, because step 3 is about stretching your limits, and step 4 is when you can compare your predictions to reality, so that you can refine them again and again. I want to be clear here. This analytical and strategic intuition isn't about making gut decisions without evidence. It's about knowing where to even look for the evidence in the first place. Because of how interconnected these complex systems are, every element can potentially affect every other element. This is another example of a combinatorial explosion. It will take an unfathomable amount of time to examine every possible element of an issue, whether it's done by humans or AI. Yet again, humans can develop a better sense for which elements to examine first because we're guided by our intrinsic tastes for what matters most. You see, this intuition, and really all the intuitions, aren't just about keeping your job safe from AI. They are the very skills that help people, organizations, and entire nations thrive. In fact, it's even bigger than that. This 4-step practice actually reflects a foundational principle in systems science called transformability, the ability to continuously iterate between exploring new possibilities and refining what works best. So this isn't just a human skill. It's the intelligence behind all living things, whether they are animals, plants, fungi, or even bacteria. Because in an ever-changing universe, the most important skill is to navigate and shape change itself. Quick note before we wrap up. You don't need to practice all 4 steps in one single day. Take some breaks, do other things. Research shows that occasional breaks and task switching actually deepen learning and boost creativity. Also, it's true that your current job might not demand these tastes or intuitions yet, but I bet there are roles along your career path or in your broader industry that do. Which is why this practice is especially important. Because as AI automates more repetitive jobs, more positions that requires complex intuitions will open up. And by then, you will be much better prepared. And if you want to go deeper, check out my episode on critical thinking and systems thinking. It will give you more tools for step 1 and 2. And my episode on the 3 pillars of resilience has tips that connect directly to step 3 and step 4. Lastly, I created this channel to share what I've learned about systems and resilience. I hope one day it will grow into a community where we learn, practice, and build a better future for ourselves and for the planet. If that resonates with you, please like and subscribe. Your support is what keeps me going. Thank you, and talk to you next time.